What was that ticking sound?
I don't know.
Did you hear it?
I feel like I remember it, but I didn't hear it. Is that weird?
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, it's going. It'll. Whatever. It's just life. Sometimes there's a lot of fucking clicking.
Sometimes there's just clicking.
Sometimes there's just clicking.
That's a lesson I've learned.
Once again to Noah's Snark, where two former religious types and current snarks take a look at religious media on its own terms.
I'm Hillary.
And I am Josh, aka Anime Bullshit.
Anime Bullshit?
We'll get there.
Okay.
But before we continue,
yeah,
let's talk about our hits and misses from last time.
Wait, did we even say what we're doing right today?
You're right, I skipped it. No, wait, we do hits and misses first.
What?
Yeah,
do we?
Don't we?
No.
I think so. I think we do.
No, you're like, what we're doing this week? And then I say what we're doing this week.
I have no idea, but I will...
Honestly, you can convince me either way right now. My brain is fucking mush.
I'm not sure.
I don't know what we do every single week for the last year.
We'll have to listen to it one day.
What do we do every single day?
I'm gonna go with the thing I have written down.
Okay.
But I'm not positive. So as usual... Hillary, do you have any hits or misses you'd like to mention from last week, the week before, any period of time ever?
Yes, actually. We did some research like we said we were going to do.
Yay! Maybe just now.
I think it was the Secret Adventures episode.
Yes.
And we were talking about old babysitter movies.
Yes.
You were misunderstanding what Babysitter's Club was.
Yes, had no idea, apparently.
And remembering a movie with Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes.
Do you recall?
Yes, Adventures in Babysitting.
It was Adventures in Babysitting, not Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, not
That's just another movie I saw at one point.
So many movies about babysitters.
Only in the early 90s.
In the late 80s? This was late 80s.
Okay.
87.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was born that year.
You were born that year. Elizabeth Shue was the main actress.
That's her.
Yes. And we've solved all of our mysteries, so...
Alright, so now we're done with that. Let's talk about a movie that will also solve some of our mysteries.
Okay.
What are we doing today?
We're doing An Interview with God. Or is it just called Interview with God?
I think it's an interview.
I think so.
I don't think it matters.
It doesn't matter.
But since we are talking about An Interview with God, if you don't know the premise of this movie, it's an interview with God.
Someone's interviewing God.
The two characters are Paul and God.
Yep.
There's other characters, but let's just go with Paul and God. We don't need to know the others.
Correct.
So, describe this movie in one sentence.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
A movie that proposes to answer all your theological questions, but it just turns out you already know all the answers because the writers didn't want to bother coming up with their own.
I was going to say something about it. A one-act play attempting to be deep with no success.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I have a terrible one line. There's nothing funny there. I can't find anything funny.
If you think of it.
I'm so tired, Josh.
I know, we have to do this.
We have to do this.
We have to do it.
We're in this together. Cling to me.
Are you sure you like this movie?
I don't know. I think compared to a lot of other, what I was, it's better than I expected. I expected it to be way worse.
Yes. I have some positive things to say about this movie.
Yeah.
I do not like this movie.
I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of like,
Okay.
I mean.
So we might be on the same page.
Okay, cool. We might be on the same page. If I come up with a one sentence later, I'm just going to blurt it out.
Yeah.
And then cut it in.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got fucking nothing.
So, let's just start with the breakdown of the movie, because
Okay.
it is a lot of words, so I have a lot of words.
Okay.
Because it's hard to, pare it all down. So I'm going to start there. And I don't know what's going to happen at the very beginning of this movie, but I do have good news. All proceeds of this movie are donated to charity.
I think that's actually rad.
Yeah. So I was just like, let's just hope it's a worthwhile one.
Yeah, I looked up the Giving Films, which is the production company, and that's what they do. All the money that they earn from making these movies actually goes to legit charities.
Yeah.
It's rad.
That's awesome.
Awesome, I support that.
Yeah. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
Watch this movie then.
It's Christian as fuck.
It's Christian as fuck. Watch it. You're going to give some money to charity.
Yeah.
But the movie begins, and we get some somber string instruments playing as we get a quote. God moves in mysterious ways. And that's followed up by the last words of one Henry Ward Beecher. I have no idea who that is.
Me neither.
But his last words were apparently, "Now comes the mystery."
I don't remember this. I was so tired. I watched this yesterday.
Yeah.
After
just
work.
exhausted.
Yeah, I was really tired.
I get it.
I have a feeling a lot of what you talk about right now is going to be brand new information for me.
Let's do it, baby.
All right.
And so our main character, who's Paul, narrates for us.
He looks like Ethan Hawke mixed
does.
with Josh Brolin.
He does. And he describes what he thinks when he hears that people lost their faith. You know, he pictures them giving up, no longer able to keep looking. But it's different for him, because he searched, even going as far as a war zone in the hopes that a war would bring himself closer to God. But the more he prayed, the more empty it all seemed. And of course, if you're not aware now, Paul is a reporter. A war zone reporter at this time. But he's not just some thrill-seeking asshole. Although, he might be that too.
He might be.
But he's like, I'm just trying to get close to God. Maybe if I almost die, it'll bring me there.
Yeah. He's searching.
Yeah. But this is just a transition to the real meat of the story, where he is back home after his war zone stuff. And he's on the phone talking to a friend about difficulty the friend is having. He's a veteran. He's got PTSD really bad. And he just really needs some help right now. And his wife is sitting in the other room. And she's sort of just despondently looking over photos of them. While clearly very unhappy. And it seems like she wants to talk to him. But he's on the phone. And so we have to prepare for the hammer that's about to come down on his head.
Yep.
Turns out he's the one who wanted to talk to her. But he got this phone call right at the worst time. But he took it because he's a good friend like that, okay?
Yep.
And it turns out that they're already separated, and he's actually trying to win her back. But things have only been worse since he's been back. Those are her words. And she just can't, they don't have any trust in their relationship anymore. And he's upset because she wants to throw it all away over one mistake. And he just wants to talk more, but she's going to work. And he also she also just really doesn't seem to want to talk to him, so she's not going to commit to it yet.
Right.
She's just like, I don't know. She doesn't say anything. She's like, I don't want to talk to you. So we also know that he's got a big interview coming up today. And I am certain that we will all be shocked to find out that this is the titular interview.
The interview?
With.
God.
Good. So Paul rides off on his bike while his wife goes to the bus stop to wait for the bus, and she's crying there. We're supposed to be feeling all the feels right now. Do you feel the feels?
No.
Do you feel them?
I'm confused a little bit with how open she is about crying next to a whole bunch of people.
Well, she tried to keep it back. You saw a little part where she was just like...
Yeah, I did see that.
So maybe she's just...
Go find a bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's just how I do things.
Or put like a hoodie
Although they
on.
are in New York, so she probably is very safe there to cry.
That's true. No one's going to ask her about it.
No one's going to ask her about it.
But Paul makes it to his interview, but he's 5 minutes late, which only gives them 25 minutes for the day. Because apparently, whoever this is, and it's God, has agreed to 3 days of interviewing, 30 minutes each day. And Paul does religious reporting, but for a secular paper. Mm-hmm. So he warns God not to expect too much attention to this story.
Right.
They haven't identified him as God yet, but, we're doing a breakdown here, and the name of the movie is an interview with God. So I'm not going to sit on the pretense of like, who is this? It's stupid to me.
Right. What is confusing, though, is I'm not sure do we ever really find out how, like, it starts out seeming that he totally believes that this is God,
mm-hmm.
and he is interviewing God, and mm-hmm. he knows it, and he's thinking, later he gets kind of questioning about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't...
It was very waffling.
It was very waffling.
Because it seems like he's just talking to a guy he thinks is crazy, thinks he's God.
Right.
But pretty quickly, he starts treating him... I think he's... To be fair, in the defense of the movie, I think what he's trying to do is just be an unbiased reporter as best he can. So he's just going to take everything this guy says as though he really is God.
Yeah.
And he'll deal with the rest later,
That makes
sense. He finds out this is an escaped mental patient. We'll include that in the story.
Right. What a great story that would have been.
But for now, he's gonna talk to this guy to get the information he wants, as though this guy is who he says.
He's gonna find the story in whatever's happening.
Right.
That makes sense.
So,
also, didn't this feel like it came from an article about, like, an article written by a guy who was imagining talking to God?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you do any research as to where the story came from?
No.
I bet you it did.
There's nothing.
I bet you it was like a reporter story that got turned into a movie.
It's very possible. His editor, when they do talk to him, takes it that way.
Yeah.
He's like, I have an interview with God. He's like, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize it's an actual literal interview.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the It wouldn't be remotely surprising, because it seems to be the default of everyone in this movie except for Paul.
Which is why it felt like kind of a one-act play or like a short story that got turned into a movie.
Honestly, I don't know that it was based on anything, but I'm pretty sure I've read this story.
I feel like I had too. That's why I was searching. I'm like, there's got to be a short story from high school that this is supposed to be.
Yeah, this is really the Screw Tape Letters, but in reverse. So
I don't know what that is.
It's C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Screw Tape Letters, where a demon named Screw Tape sends letters to his nephew or whatever. Not C.S. Lewis, but his demon nephew about how to get people to stop believing in Jesus and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
But it's basically this. It's just here's how demons think. Do this stuff that's good for us, the bad guys.
Right.
So it's not that different from just that.
Yeah, the only short story I can even remember reading in high school was Metamorphosis.
Oh, yeah.
I remember nothing else.
How'd you like it?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Paul thanks God for the interview to start, although he does seem to take him as some sort of a crazy guy, but he takes a photo of the guy. And God looks pretty human, according to Paul, but God claims that Paul looks pretty godlike to him.
And then he's like, oh, good one. Yeah, in his image.
No.
All right.
Yeah, and this is sort of why I say, at the beginning, Paul is clearly playing along rather than just, taking it truth.
Right.
He's like, oh, it's a clever joke.
Also, the actor who plays God is he's a really well-known actor. Oh, yeah. I know him from A League of Their Own, but...
I don't necessarily know who he is, but he looks familiar.
He's one of those guys who's in a lot of things.
Yeah.
As a character actor, yeah.
So we're going to get to the first question. Why did God agree to this interview? And God claims it's because he talks to his children all the time. Not just prophets, of course, because before he talks to them, they're not prophets. They're just... not prophets yet.
Right. Just people.
Just people. And so Paul asks why God isn't doing this sort of dramatic stuff like in the Bible, burning bushes and pillars of fire and all that. And God offers to blow some stuff up if it'll help.
I wish he'd said yes. Right? The weird thing to be like, no, that's not necessary. I'm like, if you can, I would love to see that. Yeah.
That'll really help your case.
It really would.
Paul refuses to accept the offer of blowing some stuff up. And
that's
God
dumb.
But God does point out that he doesn't need to get his attention with that kind of stuff because they're literally already talking. Mm-hmm. Why would I need to have a burning bush? We're already speaking.
Here's why. Because talking does not prove that you're God.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna hopefully get to that.
Whatever.
So Paul asks if this makes him a prophet, and God is non-committal to that answer so far. And if you're thinking that that's not going to be a theme, you're wrong. Every answer is non-committal.
Correct.
This man says nothing this entire movie.
It's absolutely true. That is very frustrating.
But Paul starts from the very, very beginning, the creation of the world. And it's a series of what God calls mostly biographical questions that God pushes back on because it's all stuff that everyone already knows the answers to. How old are you? Where did you come from? That kind of thing. And of course...
why are we here?
Does he ever ask that?
Yeah,
okay.
in this one, but they brush over it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I can't remember the answer, but it was...
I have the meaning of life written down here.
There it is.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get to that. He does answer a little bit, but it doesn't make sense.
He doesn't answer it in an actual answery way.
But the pushback causes some discussion to spring up around omniscience. Because he's like, you already know what I'm going to ask you. And he's like, yes, but obviously you don't. Mm-hmm. So if you ask, I can answer, even though I know what you're going to ask. And
I have a
already
headache.
have an answer. Right?
Yes.
And so it's not, God says it's not an easy process for me. Because, as you understand, I know everything's going to happen, but also I'm trying to make it so that it's a whole thing. And it's, like you said, it's just headache-inducing already.
Right.
It's this makes no sense. Okay. But they're going to move forward, and God begins to go through a little bit about what he knows about Paul, and he gives him some of his own biographical information. Went to school, Afghanistan, got married, all that stuff. Until he mentions Paul's marriage, that throws Paul's off for just a second.
Right.
He's like, wait, let's move on.
Well, then he looks at his ring. He's like, oh, you saw my ring.
Oh, I didn't know that's how he did it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
God's like, I know about your marriage, too. And he's like, what? Why would you... what?
Yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm literally wearing a wedding ring.
Yeah, he's like, oh, okay, good one. Anyway.
Yeah, but he does admit that he had him going for just a second. And this leads to another conversation about what to say to people who claim that God doesn't exist. And God says that he understands. But the world that those people see is just that. And sometimes things are just the way it looks. And of course, this is supposed to be some profound point where God is making the point that the world certainly looks like someone had a hand in it, right? And I'm like...
no, it doesn't.
No, not remotely. Are you kidding?
No. That's one point of view.
All right, so Paul begins the lightning round now. And he starts with the meaning of life. And we do get an answer here. It is to live, to struggle, to serve God, and to ask questions like, what is the meaning of life?
Okay.
Yeah, that's not...
Yeah, and then my next question is, but why though?
Yeah, like...
That's not a why, that's more questions.
Yeah, what is the meaning of life isn't actually a question about what do you think we should do with life.
Basically what he says, like, the meaning of life is to ask what the meaning of life is. Like, that, no.
Yeah, that's not remotely...
That's not helpful.
An answer.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get anything better, so let's move on to number 2.
Okay.
Was there ever a time when God didn't exist? And the answer is, I am that I am.
Shut the fuck up. This is the worst interview.
Is there a heaven? Yes. Also, Satan exists, but he's overrated. He only has power to the extent that humans give him.
Okay, whatever.
Not an answer.
Not an answer.
What happens when we die? You're reunited with the everlasting. So yes, souls are immortal. Can an atheist be moral? And this is my favorite. Sure, but you can also build a home on no foundation. You just have to hope the earth never shakes. And like, it sounds clever. It's stupid.
It sounds clever, and people could repeat that and feel smug.
You're right.
About the answer, but that is dumb and not accurate.
Right. But that's just what we're kind of stuck with these days. This is the things that we do with our free time, Hillary.
I know.
How do you feel?
It's a choice we fucking made.
And one last question.
We might as well be doing this, is also how I look at it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, apparently our entire purpose of life is to struggle, so...
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. If I wasn't here doing this, I'd probably just be drunk somewhere. So this is healthy.
And the last lightning round question, is God love? And God says, it doesn't boast, but yes.
That sounds boastful.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the point. It's like, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying that
I'm literally love.
And so the lightning round ends with God pointing out that Paul hasn't asked him the single most popular question, which is...
Why does bad stuff happen to good people?
Exactly!
Yeah.
And Paul says that he wasn't going to ask this because it's not really a question, it's a complaint. And the complaint is really just a version of, why do bad things happen to me?
I disagree with that. I do wonder why bad things happen to other people too.
Yeah, I know. Like, my life is semi-charmed. Like, it's pretty solid.
I can see why your marriage is falling apart. You're pretty selfish.
But God admits that bad things do happen to very good people, and he's willing to answer the question, but Paul literally is not interested in it.
You want to know why? Because there's no way to answer that question, and the screenwriter did not try.
Yeah, he's like, of course God knows the answer, but also we're not going to answer it because I don't know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So stupid.
But it seems that Paul legitimately doesn't want the answer. For now, of course. This is a movie, after all, so I assume it's coming around. But
Does it?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I write these notes in real time, so I don't go back and fix them for later.
Let's find out.
Yeah. But Paul finally does ask a question that God claims he actually cares about, because the rest was just nonsense. Mm-hmm. Does free will exist? And how does that reconcile with God's will, especially omniscient God who knows everything? And God doesn't answer directly because he never does. But he instead asks Paul if he feels that he forced him to come to this interview. Mm-hmm. And Paul, of course, points out that he wouldn't necessarily know if he did, if he was forced.
Yeah, I'm glad he's actually he makes sense on his side.
Yes. So Paul asks again, and again, instead of answering, God tells a joke. It is a stupid joke. I didn't write it down. It was bad.
I forgot it.
And Paul doesn't laugh. And God uses that as a justification that free will obviously exists. Because if you don't laugh at God's joke...
Yeah,
You're clearly...
I'm God. I told a joke and you didn't laugh. So clearly you have free will. That's not clear at all.
Yeah.
That is still something you could have done. What are you talking about? I'm so frustrated.
And he points out further still that everyone on Earth clearly believes in free will because the foundation of human law is based on the existence of free will. Yeah, and this sounds like, again, one of those like smug, oh, look at this, I'm totally right, except it's not how it works. And it's not true, but I wouldn't expect an understanding of, like, the ethics of predeterminism from the people who wrote this movie. Even if we assume everything is predetermined, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore people aren't actually technically responsible for everything they do, that doesn't change the fact that they did it. And punishment is, at least somewhat demonstrated, as the best way to get people from doing things.
Right.
So, they may not be able to not, technically. But in the same sense, we are predetermined to punish them. And just because you're not necessarily in control of something doesn't mean that cause... What am I trying to say?
It's
very
so sorry.
complicated.
I'm going to be staring at you a bunch.
No. It's fine. But
because my brain is not
there right now.
Yeah, but I'm trying so hard, both Josh and audience.
Yeah, but let me scoot backwards, right?
Go scoot.
Even if we assume that everything is predetermined, so people aren't in full control of all their actions, the reactions that we have are also sort of predetermined in that sense. Mm-hmm. So, someone commits a crime, we punish them. Hopefully they don't go back to committing that crime. That's not how the American justice system works, but it's how any good and just justice system is supposed to work.
Right.
And it works in many other places well. Or even with, think a small child. Let's not go with
right,
law.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's go with children, right? Kid does a thing, you punish the kid. Hopefully doesn't do it again. Oftentimes it works.
Right.
Don't cross the street by yourself. They do it, you punish them, they don't do it anymore.
Right.
Those things are not in anyone's control in a perfectly free will sense. But it still worked. Mm-hmm. So it actually is not reliant on free will for someone to be punished. You can punish someone as a reaction to their action, and that causes another reaction, which is hopefully better action.
Yeah, I couldn't be a philosophy major.
I know. But my point is, even if you don't believe in free will, that doesn't mean you can't punish people. It just means that you have to accept at a certain level that it's just a chain reaction run through the beginning of history. But that doesn't change anything at all.
I got you.
So it's this really smug, like, you wouldn't be able to punish people if it wasn't for free will. It's like, yeah, you can. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like,
you can do everything with free will.
Yeah. Or predeterminism, because everything still works the same.
Except break the laws of physics. Or
Right.
I wish my free will meant I could fly.
Right. But I was like, literally, if you think it's predetermined or you think it's completely free, nothing has changed except for the base cause of said action.
Right.
And that's nothing.
Right.
It's no different. And it just doesn't make sense. So it's just one of those, it's really frustrating in this movie.
It's a little logic puzzle.
It's a little logic puzzle, but they're doing like, I got the upper hand on you. It's like, no, you didn't. You just don't understand.
Yeah, you understand less than me. and I hurt myself trying to understand.
And the reason you understand less than Hillary is because you think you know, and you know nothing.
Yeah. I fully accept the size of my brain and its capabilities, and its not lack of capability.
Right. So by pretending you know the answer, you've really fucked yourself over. Okay, sorry, let's move on.
None of us are as smart as we think we are.
Not a one.
And I don't think I'm smart.
But God moves on, and he says that human will and his own will are not contradictory, because they are not two versions of the same thing, but instead they fit perfectly together. And Paul points out that how can you tell when one begins and the other ends? And if you can't, how can you really tell that they're two separate things in it all?
Good question, I thought.
Yeah, it was a really good question. And of course he doesn't answer it, but he gives a tortured analogy about the chessboard between them and how two pieces can't occupy the same space at the same time. This doesn't at all resolve Paul's issue.
No.
Which is, how can we tell that they're even two separate things?
Right. If they fit together like a puzzle piece.
Yeah. Be like, oh,
is there a seam that we can see?
Right. Like, that would be helpful. But God's analogy is not answer it, because it could just, let's say,
that's physics.
Yeah, take a knight.
Right.
Put it on the chess piece. But like, two pieces can't go on this spot. Like, yeah, but what if they're just that piece? Like, what's different?
What if they were combined, and that is two pieces together.
Right.
What are you talking
about?
Yeah.
You're not making any actual answers.
This movie really, it's a lot of good questions and zero answers.
Right, and that's what's particularly
under the guise of good
it.
answers.
Right. They think they nailed it.
You're 100%.
Okay. But people make choices for whatever reason, and they have to live with those nonetheless. And that's God's ultimate answer. And it's funny, because it's literally my answer for how his point about free will being the basis of human law is not an answer. Because people make choices for whatever reason. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And you still have to live with them.
True.
So we are actually in total agreement, except he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Because the writers of this movie, again, think they have the answer and don't, and are smug enough to just go with it.
I feel like the screenwriter wears scarves all the time.
He smokes a corncob pipe.
Absolutely.
With real loose leaf tobacco.
This is a 23-year-old who always has a beanie on.
But I just want to ask you, Hillary, since you're the one you're sort of you're going to serve the role of the audience for us this movie.
I am the audience, Josh.
Because this is my sort of like heady-ass movie.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the question here was answered?
No.
The difference between free will, human free will, and God's will?
I don't feel like any of the questions get answered.
I'm going to ask you occasionally, but I just want to make sure.
Okay, but also I feel like good questions are being asked. God's answering riddles.
Absolutely. And, I mean...
I wish that the character of... What's his name? Paul. Got more frustrated. He gets frustrated with different things.
Yeah,
but
he gets frustrated with personal stuff. He
hates being... he doesn't want to talk about his own, life. Mm-hmm. But he should get more frustrated with the fact that he's doing an interview with somebody who cannot give a straight answer.
Right. And has not and refuses.
Right. And does it smugly.
Yeah. But this leads to more personal questions for Paul. And I'm skipping most of it because it doesn't really matter. Eventually, Paul says he thought this was supposed to be an interview, but it seems more like an intervention.
Yeah.
And God says, yes, but not the way you think.
Ugh, shut up.
He literally can't answer anything with yes or no. Paul asks how God knows what he's thinking, and God says that he's going to leave it for tomorrow. And so Paul says it's a weird interview, which it is.
Yes.
And God's here to save him. And, everyone needs saving, right? So God says yes, but things are going to be different this time because God is going to help Paul in a way he doesn't yet understand, but he will. And now they run out of time for the day, and God implies that tomorrow may not be at the same time in the same place. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Spoilers, it's not. And Paul walks away really confused and kind of annoyed.
Yeah, as well he should be.
And the handshake that he received from God seems to have filled him with very strange feelings, and he appears to be hearing voices.
Yeah, could you understand what the voices were saying? I was watching it on my, I had a headset on.
Yeah.
But I
don't think they were supposed to be intelligible.
Okay.
It's just like whispering. There was a few lines that were real lines.
Right.
But I think it was just supposed to be like, I'm hearing things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why.
I feel better about that because I rewound it and rewatched it so many times trying to figure out what was being said because it seemed important.
No, I don't think it was. Because I don't think this comes up again.
I don't think it does either, which is, again, why I kind of went back. Because maybe there was a clue there. Right. Or, you'd watch him respond. He has a clear, something's happening.
Yeah. He's having an experience.
Correct.
But we're not.
We never really know what that is. At some point, when it happens, it's God telling him where to meet him, I think, right?
Probably.
He's like, at the theater down the street.
Yeah. in the war at the fish market. I changed my mind, the theater.
Oh, I'm running 10 minutes late.
I also wrote down that this would be a badass superhero origin story. Paul the reporter does an interview with God, shakes his hand, and now...
He has schizophrenia.
He can hear the cries of the helpless.
That would be awesome, actually.
Alright, so Paul's riding his bike, and we still get some of this residual power of God flowing through him, and it appears to be affecting him. He runs a red light through a really busy intersection. But of course, the movie's only halfway in, so he gets through unharmed. Not even halfway, it's like 20 minutes in.
Right.
But he goes through his notes as he receives a phone call about his sad experience with his life. And this appears to be his mistress. She calls him. She's like, oh, did she leave this morning?
Yeah, she sounds sexy.
She's got a sexy voice. Yeah. She's kind of like got an accent, like a foreign accent.
Yeah, and she's like asking if she's left already, meaning his wife.
Yeah, and like, can I come see you later? Or
right.
Will you come see me? And Paul resists. He's not doing that. And he's interrupted by his boss, his editor.
Right.
And editor asks why he's here, because Paul is supposed to be on paid leave, which means he's literally being paid not to work, so why are you here at the office working?
Right. Yes, good question.
Because Paul has apparently taken no actual time off, despite the leave he's on.
I don't understand this. That's all I've ever wanted.
Right. So, editor tries to convince Paul not to work, but Paul deflects, and he talks about his interview, and he pretends that everything in his personal life is going great. And he asks editor for some help with his friend from the first phone call, the PTSD guy.
Right.
And, he's just like, do you know anybody you could talk to? He's got this whole thing. It's slightly complicated, but it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
He just needs someone sort of secret he can talk to without getting involved in a bunch of bullshit.
Yes, soldiers need mental health professionals.
But he can't go through the VA because he's got like a security clearance for his current job, and if they find out he's having mental health, they could try to revoke it or something. But editor is going to help Paul find this help that his friend needs. And they also talk about this interview that he's having with the guy that is God. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about earlier, the editor takes this to be like, oh, you're writing a fun article about interviewing God. That should be interesting.
Right, a fun fiction.
Right. Do you want to write this, like, put it on the front page? You think it would work?
Yeah.
And Paul's like, really? Front page? Front page?
Yeah.
And so he's like, absolutely, yeah, totally. So that's what they're going to do. So Paul reaches out once more to his wife. He calls her, but she doesn't answer the phone, but he just wants to talk to her. And now he goes back to his own place where he sort of dwells in his own emotional breakdown, and eventually he breaks a cup in his hand, and it cuts his hand. And while he's wrapping up the wound, he hears voices once again.
Yep.
And you figure this would be a recurring theme.
It's just telling him to go down the street to the theater.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Because it literally doesn't matter in this movie, except for when it happened and this one scene.
Yeah. God dropped a pin.
Bloop.
Yep.
Meet me here.
Exactly.
I hope you have an iPhone 7. All right. It's time for the next day's interview. And like Hillary has said, they are changing venues to a theater.
And this made it feel even more like a one-act play.
Yeah, because it's literally happening on a theater stage.
Yeah, on a stage. Yeah, with minimal set.
Yeah. And God asked, Paul what he did to his hand, and he isn't going to answer. And Paul apologizes for being unprofessional yesterday. He feels like it's supposed to be an interview about God, but it wound up being about him.
Yeah.
And that's not the point of the interview, is about him.
I'm glad he said something, because that was true.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair,
Granted, God was making it about
that's what I was
him,
going to
Paul,
say.
yeah.
Every time he tried to ask him a question, he was like, what about you, Paul? How's your fucking
But
mom?
also, Paul got visibly agitated and didn't keep his cool like a reporter should.
Yeah. But they're going to talk about salvation today. And they ultimately clarified this to mean returning to a state of perfection with the Almighty and absolution from sin forever. Mm-hmm. Paul is a Christian. He considers himself one, so he sort of pops it out of his head.
Yeah.
He's like, that's what salvation means to me.
Definition, yeah.
Yeah. And God points out that Paul's definition skips several thousand years of disagreement, but Paul literally doesn't want to talk about himself or that.
Right.
He's just like, this is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
He's like, just say yes or no and we can move on. So God asks him to play a little game. Because he's always playing fucking games.
It's riddles and games.
So he asks Paul to think of God as the manufacturer of salvation, and Paul as the consumer. And he wants him to rate this product. Mm-hmm. And this is where we finally get another somewhat interesting moment.
This is my favorite moment, probably.
Yeah. Because Paul says that on the one hand, it's the greatest product of all time. Who wouldn't want redemption from sin and reunion with God for all eternity? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it's the only product where proper use involves returning it to the maker, and there's really only one way for that to happen. Because everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die.
Right. Good point.
And they point out that it's about when, not if, or what, or how, You're just going to die. Get your salvation before you can.
Yeah.
This is a good moment for me, at least. Like you said, it was interesting.
Yeah.
But also, a significant point, for me, and many people I know, is the first part, where it's the greatest product of all time, because who doesn't want to be reunited with God for all eternity?
Right.
Lots of people. Me especially.
I don't want that at all.
There is no circumstance
under
which I would want to exist forever.
The only alternative circumstance, the only reason that wouldn't be true for me, is if hell was proven. Right.
And your alternate is heaven or hell.
Yeah, if those are the only two options, then yeah, I guess I'll take that eternal, because they're both eternal. Right. And this thing, neither of us want eternity anywhere. But if it was between the two, which I don't believe it is, obviously, neither of us do, yes, I would like to be up there with you.
Right. Heaven is clearly better than hell.
Yes,
but you know what's way better than heaven?
Nothing.
It's nothing. Just being nothing.
Nothingness. Nothing as a thing, not nothing as in nothing is better.
Right. I cannot conceive of wanting to be alive for more than, I can only think of 1,000 years.
Right.
If I was alive for 1,000 years, existent for 1,000 years, I have to be done.
I'm not gonna lie. There is a part of me that wants to live forever, and not in that way. Yeah. But in a vampire type way. Mm-hmm. And it's not because I'm afraid of death whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's because I'm curious as fuck.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I just want to see how things go. Yeah, I just want to see is that what you said just now?
It's not what I said, but
okay.
That's
what you mean.
1,000, because after 1,000 years, even my curiosity is going to be gone.
Right.
Boy, am I tired.
Yeah, I was I'm curious as to what my in game would, what would put me over the edge or make me not care anymore. Yeah. Yeah. But at least if you're a vampire, you can just pop your head off and then... Cool.
They have the exact notion. Yeah. Because this is all, I would be curious to live longer than a normal human. Right. I am not curious to live forever. In any way.
We agree.
A soul, fuck all that.
Fuck all
Sounds
that.
horrible. Yeah. Okay, but that's fine. The point is, some people do want eternity, so let them have it, right? Yeah. And now God wants to talk about not the what or when or whatever of the salvation product. He wants to talk about the how. And so Paul points out that the, instructions are widely available. It's the Bible. But they're also a bit confusing, and that's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jesus forgives everyone. So why does anyone bother following any of the rules, you know?
Right. Well, he basically talks about the difference between, but like basically the New Testament negating the Old Testament, which is a thing that needs to be talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in the Old Testament, you had to follow the law.
Right. You had the 10 Commandments. That's all you had to do. That was your thing. And then in the second half, in the new version, if Jesus can
just forgive you for everything.
Forgive you for your sins, then the rules themselves don't really matter. Just acknowledgement that you are breaking rules is all that is required.
Right. So he's like, you could be a liar, you could be a murderer, you could be a philanderer.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Just
it's all
go
cool
tell
with
your
Jesus,
priest.
baby.
Yeah.
And of course, Paul has some bigger problems, but we get sidetracked by the fact that God is kind of being a dick. Mm-hmm. Because even worse than the previous day, he's refusing to answer any question directly.
Right.
Because Paul's literally getting in there. He's like,
he's asking great questions. It's a possibility for a great conversation, but it is very one-sided. God is giving nothing.
Mm-hmm. But, so now we're talking about how Paul apparently misunderstands faith, because he claims to have always had it. And God asks him to imagine the world from his own perspective. And of course, it's hard to do.
From God's perspective?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that.
Because God gives a speech about how, every joy and pleasure of the entire world with every person is also combined with the sad and the bad parts too. And you multiply this by every human soul to have ever existed and will ever exist. And that's what it's like being God. He experiences all of that. And of course, Paul says that it sounds miserable and overwhelming, because it would break his heart just to have to experience all the bad things for everyone.
Right. Except for you created it.
Right. You literally let it happen or did it yourself.
Right. People complaining about their own actions.
Right. But God asks why Paul would feel this way, why he would even care about all the pain and the suffering and the torture and the bad.
Yeah.
And Paul points out it's because he has some compassion. Any.
Right.
And it's enough. But God asks him then, where does that morality come from? That compassion. Mm-hmm. And I would like to take this as an excellent opportunity to point out that compassion is not a moral question. It is a feeling.
Thank you. Yes.
Now, is it a better feeling than most others?
Empathy is not morality.
Right.
Right.
Is it a better feeling than, say, hate? Absolutely. But, that's not a moral thing.
No.
Both of those things are feelings, and they're completely natural. And one is conducive to positive human experience, and the other is not.
Right. Both can lead to actions that can be moral or amoral.
Right.
Right.
But neither of them are moral in and of themselves. That's not how morality works. Even if you don't you're atheist, you don't know anything about morality. Well, clearly I have a better understanding than you do.
Right.
Because you, too, aren't going to sit there and be like, well, at my church, we just talk about good stuff. We don't do anything. So, we're super cool.
Yeah.
Because even churches are always we're always doing charity because we're the best.
Throwing it out here. At least these people talking this nonsense, they donate all the money to charity.
They donate all the money to charity, exactly.
Sweet.
It would be very different if they were just haha, make some cash.
Right, exactly. Like some of the other people who make movies that we discuss.
Right. So it's just, very few people think that just having a feeling is the same as having a moral system or judgment or anything. It's just a feeling. It's what you do that typically matters.
Yeah, this harkens back to when I was in Bible camp and I asked whether cursing in my head was a sin.
What'd you get the answer as?
They said yes. I'm like, that's dumb. Fuck off.
God knows your inner thoughts.
Right. Or just so just thinking is, in that moment, I'm like, so you're saying a thought that pops into my head that I don't do anything about or say out loud even is
bad, yeah.
Is bad and amoral and I'm sinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That brings me a great point.
Okay.
I hadn't thought of that. Because a lot of religious people, Christians particularly maybe, monotheists.
Right.
Tend to actually have, it's not uncommon to hear if, Ray Comfort always talks about if you have
you're a liar.
Yeah, or if have you ever been angry at your brother or a stranger? If you
felt ire in your heart.
Right, because if you do that, then you murdered him in your heart. Or if you looked at a woman with lust,
they give you no cushion to just be a fucking human, and it's okay to be flawed. Mm-hmm. They don't like that.
So this might actually explain why this movie pretends that compassion in and of itself is a moral answer to some sort of moral question.
You're right. That actually could be the point of view that we're missing.
Yeah.
Because it's wrong.
Yeah, that's completely insane.
Right.
It's obviously untrue. But it does it. Okay, so you helped me there.
Cool.
I hadn't been able to consider that from a perspective of someone who thinks that thought crime is a real thing. You can be eternally punished for.
Right. Oh my gosh, Christian Minority Report.
Exactly. Except unlike Minority Report, you can't prove them wrong.
And it's not entertaining.
Because even if you do, you get punished. Well, now we're talking about regular Minority Report.
No, exactly.
Okay, sorry. Movie sucks. I thought the ending was clever.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Not the kind of fun that made me watch it again, but I just remember being like, all right.
there were parts of it.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was clever. I liked it.
I also just like dystopia.
Yeah, usually pretty into it. I just wasn't.
Yeah.
I think that was like Spielberg's lost years.
He's had so many, though.
Oh, he does. He loses years here and there.
I love him so much, but I love him for the 80s and 90s, and that is going to be it.
Did you see Ready Player One?
Yeah.
It sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks
You
so
want to know
bad.
why it sucks? The book was okay. The book was fine. It wasn't as clever as I thought the puzzles should have had more clever
instead of just Wade's better at this than everyone else in the world.
Right, or just straight up coincidence, which it's worse in the movie than it is in the book, but it's still not great in the book. Mm-hmm. But because Steven Spielberg took it on, he didn't want any of his movies or things in it. And like, you can't talk about the nostalgia of the 80s without talking about Steven Spielberg. So like in the book, things like Jaws and E.T. and stuff get brought up, but it's not in the movie because Steven didn't want to,
sort of be self-aggrandizing,
right?
But also it's
literally about you. Like, it's about media from the 80s, which you were king of. Yeah.
I guess that's when your humility gets in the way of quality.
Correct. Also, he shouldn't have directed it. They should have had
just have
somebody else direct it.
Include your stuff. It's fine. You also have Iron Giant. Like, it's gonna be fine.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, no, I agree with you.
So, but we're talking about Paul's compassion and how he couldn't do things from God's perspective because of that morality. And God asks if it's just Paul's faith that keeps him from being immoral. He's not immoral after all. So what could Paul possibly do that would keep God from forgiving him? Because he's like, I know you're a moral guy because you have compassion. Again, that's not what it means, but he says it.
Right. You're not a sociopath, therefore you're moral.
Therefore you're moral. Therefore, what could you do that I wouldn't forgive you for? Because what could someone do to you that you wouldn't forgive them for?
Right.
I guess it's the implication. He doesn't say it.
He doesn't say it, but I guess that's what I picked up.
And there is stuff. First off, I think I have some compassion. No, there's stuff I'm not going to forgive you for.
To be honest, this doesn't need to be a discussion right now because it's a big one, but I just don't really understand forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Who does it really benefit?
Who does it really benefit, but also what is it? Like, is it me saying that it's okay?
Yeah.
Does it have to be something that in my heart I'm like, I no longer think that was a bad thing you did? Is it I don't care anymore? Is it...
I've always taken it as more that I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, this happened, it was really fucked up.
Right.
But I'm gonna move on from it. That's what I take it as. That's
what I take it as too, but in that case, like, giving and receiving forgiveness, what does that matter? Like, I don't understand, when people talk about forgiveness and just being, it's like, kind of like, you want to forgive somebody in your heart or whatever, and that makes you godlike. It's kind of like this, like, there's an etherealness to it, or, which is like...
I don't usually think about it from that perspective, because it's not really...
the way, I'm talking about strictly the way I hear people talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, when they're trying to define it and talk about it in a spiritual kind of thing, like, forgiveness is, godliness of sorts. Yeah. I don't understand that.
But what's godly about it?
Also, what is it? Are you letting things roll off your back? Because you shouldn't always let things roll off your back.
Yeah, that's what
you gotta stand up for yourself.
Yeah, there's some stuff you can't be forgiven for.
Right. Or it's
or
just
shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, if forgiveness to me might mean cutting somebody out of my life because they clearly don't deserve to be in it. But I don't, I'm just like, I no longer value you as a person because...
But you're not gonna, like, chase them down and stab them.
No, because that's revenge. Like, that's vengeful, and that, like, I'm not vengeful.
Well, that's my point.
I don't hold grudges, I just stopped hanging out with the person that wronged me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Forgiveness can be moving on.
Right.
You're not gonna,
Yeah. I don't know. What is it to not forgive? Is it spending the rest of your life sitting in a chair pouting?
Yeah,
is that
planning.
Is that what not forgiving is? Because what is not forgiving?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't
actively seeking revenge, or literally not being able to let it go and it ruining your life, I guess.
And in the context of this religion that we're talking about in this movie, God doesn't just forgive you.
No, he punishes you forever.
Right, he will if you, like, ask.
If you follow his fucking rules.
But forgiveness is not prompted. right?
Right.
Like,
it's like he doesn't forgive easily.
Right. Like true forgiveness.
He forgives with a lot of work on your part.
That's what I mean. True
right.
forgiveness is not, it doesn't have to be asked for.
Right.
In fact, if you forgive somebody, you usually don't have to tell them. And there are circumstances, and maybe someone will ask if they're feeling extra guilty about it. But
when people are like, forgive me. Like,
yeah. But if you're truly...
You want me to say I forgive you so you feel better?
Right. You'd be like, no. Right. You might even actually forgive them. She's like, no.
Yeah, just...
It's not for you.
I'm like, what a waste of time this conversation is. It doesn't change anything.
So
whether or not I forgive you or not, it doesn't change what you did. It doesn't change how... It shouldn't change how we react and feel. Like, I'm still going to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. So, I don't understand. Whatever. Yeah. It's okay. This is a wasted conversation. I'm going to edit it out.
So, Paul clearly at this point has something on his mind that he's not talking about. He doesn't want to talk about. Because God's asking him, what could you do that would keep me from forgiving you? And Paul, has a thought, but he doesn't say it. And this, of course, is supposed to tie back into the fact that he, fucked up his marriage with his wife.
Yeah.
He made a mistake. And, you're gonna leave all this over a mistake.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. But God pushes Paul to talk about his personal life again. And it pisses Paul all the way off again because he doesn't want to talk about it. And he opened this conversation with, I don't want to have this conversation today.
Right.
And his personal life is off limits, he says. But God says his personal life is the entire point of this process. So God threatens him that he's almost out of time. Mm-hmm. Says, basically, you're
He
dying.
straight up threatens him.
Yeah. And so now we have a moment where Paul has to confront his mortality. But of course, why he's so affected by this guy who he doesn't really believe to be God in the first place is a question.
It's all a question.
But it does shake him nonetheless. So he does have one last question.
He's stuck. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Why would he tell him this? It's like, come on, man. Why would you tell me?
Yeah, you asshole.
And so according to God, Paul said it himself. Dying is just about the win, so why not now? It's like, now you're being an asshole.
This
and
is where I
nuts.
wrote about, this is really not making it easy on me to stop thinking about suicide. That's what I'm saying. Listen to this. What God is saying here is, as long as you're forgiven, it doesn't matter if you're living or dying. You might as well die.
Might as well die.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to heaven.
Get to heaven sooner.
People, we've talked about it on the show. People have done it, and it is completely logical.
People kill their whole families.
That's what I mean.
Because they think that they're saving them.
Yeah, and it is purely logical to conclude that.
Right.
If
this is what you believe, then that makes all of the sense.
You have to kill your kids.
Right. It seems like crazy from a lot of us, but
we would
that
never
is what you
advocate that you kill your kids.
Yeah, fathers who lose their jobs have a tendency to kill their whole family. That is something I have learned in researching, famicide or familicide. I can't remember.
Dudes are weird. But I'm just it is a logical process. Now, obviously, we all disagree. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. But if you believe this, it's true. In fact, technically, you're doing a great thing. You're saving them and probably sacrificing yourself in the process. That's love.
Yeah. You're a martyr now.
You're a martyr now. Don't kill your family.
Don't fucking kill your family.
This is the wrong thought process based on bad information.
Right. That is using your free will for bad things.
But Paul walks away from this conversation, but God keeps monologuing like he's a fucking supervillain. Mm-hmm. Salvation is real, and it can still happen, but Paul has to understand that faith isn't a goal, it is the process, or a process. And he also offers to tell Paul specifically when he'll die, but Paul doesn't want to know that, because why would he want to know?
I didn't even want to know I was going to soon, yeah.
So he goes back to his office, Paul does, where his apparent mistress shows up out of nowhere, because he didn't call her back last night. And she's trying to be really sweet and nice, but Paul's very overwhelmed by how crappy everything is going for him, and including his wife leaving him just yesterday. And he's like, I just want some space. Can I have some space?
And I just found out I'm dying soon, so.
Right. But Mistress tries to convince him that it wasn't really his fault. Things sometimes just happen in the universe. It's no one in particular's fault. And they go into his editor's office where they can have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Paul blames himself, of course, for his marriage falling apart, because he never should have left and he screwed everything up when he did. Mm-hmm. But then she points out that his wife had her affair before he had actually even left the country.
M. Night Shyamalan!
We got the Shyamalan twist.
That was a wicked twist, too. It actually surprised me. Mm-hmm. I did not see that coming.
No, I did not expect it.
Which is why I think I like this movie. I never get surprised.
So we find, as the audience find out together, that Paul has actually been the good guy this whole time. Mm-hmm. His wife is the one who had an affair, and this is actually his sister-in-law.
Yes.
And she's trying to, help them get through it. And, his wife is the one because they never actually said, like, you did something that broke the trust. Just
Right.
this marriage has
Trust issues.
trust issues now.
Right.
And it was just like, and he's like, you want to throw it away over one action? But it was her one action.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
I know we are the audience have made assumptions.
Right. And then the editor comes in. He's like, you're just going to hang out in my office? And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to give us a little space. A few minutes.
Once again, you're not supposed to be here.
Right. But they talk about his sister-in-law, and I thought that they were still unusually close.
Yeah.
This is where I'm getting the anime bullshit from.
Okay.
Because it is a common trope in anime that a brother will fall in love with his sister. Or vice versa. Or both. It's weird.
But this is a sister-in-law, at least.
Right,
That's not
right,
incest.
right.
So incest is a big part of anime?
It doesn't usually, like, lead to anything. But for instance, Sword Art Online is a pretty big anime. It's bad, but it's pretty big. And there is a season where the brother and his, like, half-sister, step-sister, something like that, meet online but don't know it's each other, and they sort of have a relationship, and it turns out...
There's a lot of porn about that. There's a lot of porn, yeah.
And, I mean, if we're being honest, Clueless is about the same thing, except they do know it the whole time.
Well, but also, he was barely even married to his mom. Her dad was barely married to his mom, and that was, like, a century ago. So they're not related they have zero blood between them. That's very important. And also it is based on Emma, which is, not Austen, one of the Bronte sisters, I think.
I mean, I'm not, like, making a judgment.
Jane Austen. It is Jane Austen.
I'm just saying it is a thing.
Yes, but also back then everyone was marrying their cousins. Clueless is the best movie that's ever been made.
Yeah, and this anime that I was talking about does not end with them fucking. That would be crazy. But they do have a romantic subplot.
That makes me so uncomfortable.
Between our brother and his at least half blood-related sister.
All right, okay.
So it's like,
oof.
And the audience is supposed to probably be like, oh god.
Yeah, except for those few.
Yeah.
They're just like, this is my favorite thing.
But the reason I argue that they're unusually close is multiple times in this conversation, you know, she's trying to help Paul and his wife keep their marriage together. But Paul's, you know, worried that she could be out with her new other man. But the sister knows because his wife is staying with her that she's not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And so she tells Paul that, you know, he should really talk to somebody and he should be patient for things to work out. But he's still dealing with the fact that he was just told he's going to die. Mm-hmm. So he's like, well, I don't know how long I have. And before she leaves, she insists on hugging him. And honestly, it comes off to me like she is trying to take her shot while she has it.
Maybe.
Because here's my evidence. Okay? She's very insistent on helping.
Yes.
She is obviously very attractive. She's got that sort of sexy voice and the accent.
She's really pretty.
She's really pretty. But she's like, I've known you since you were 18 and you guys have been so great together. Marrying you was the best thing my sister ever did.
She's had a crush on him forever.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It seems very much like she's like, you're such a catch.
Yes.
My sister's fucked it up. Like, maybe there's time. Yeah. Like, I even took the, you know, your wife's staying with me, so I know where she is.
Exactly.
Like,
she's at my house.
Your apartment's big and empty.
Totally.
I took it in a very different direction. Of course you did. Of anime bullshit. But it's how she came off.
I know. A little bit.
Like, I may be seeing a little too much in those lines. Yeah. But it's there.
They had a rapport.
Yeah. Like, do you want to come see me? That's very directed language.
Right.
That they are doing for the purpose of the movie.
Right. But also comes across very flirty.
Right, because if we're supposed to take movies as real dialogue that's really happening.
Right.
Which means that it wasn't just her doing it to be vague, it was her doing it because she meant it.
Right.
It's like, can I come see you later? That's a very specific meaning, typically.
Yes. You're right.
And so it's just one of those things that I think you don't have much choice but to at least slightly interpret it as...
There's something going on.
There's something going on, at least in her head.
Even subconsciously for her. Even if it's just like, a childhood crush.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, you met my sister, she was so fucking happy. Yeah. Maybe that could be me.
Right, exactly. I've been jealous of her for the entire time you've been married.
So that's all, but we're gonna move on because it doesn't come up really again.
Yeah.
But Paul finally confesses to his boss, because he was in his office and he's having a bit of a breakdown, that his personal life is in shambles. And boss tells him about his own marriage struggles and how his faith got him and his own wife through it. Mm-hmm. So Paul just needs that, you know, time and faith. And again, Paul's concerned that time is a thing he does not have because he's dying. And they talk about how this interview that he's having with God is messing with his mind, but it's already been approved for the front page of the print edition. So, like, if you want that, you gotta do the work.
Yep.
And so Paul calls his wife once again, and we see her almost pick up, but she can't, because she's talking to her sister about how she's destroyed their marriage. And how many men take back their cheating wife? Mm-hmm. He was going through some stuff on his own. His own faith was sort of in crisis, and she made it all about her, and that motivated her to make some bad choices. And even if she does pick the faith back up and pray about it, she can't reverse what she did.
So essentially, she cheated on him because he wasn't Christian enough.
Mm-hmm. It seems like he was having a crisis of faith.
Right.
She took this personally.
Right.
And then cheated on him for it.
Right. So she committed adultery
right.
because her husband wasn't faithful enough to God.
Not to her. He was perfectly faithful to her.
Right. But yeah, she broke a sin. She made a mega sin.
I made a sin.
That's what I say every time I go to the bathroom. Look at the size of that sin.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Okay.
And that's how her mind worked, at least.
Yeah,
and she's aware of it now.
Right.
Like, that was obviously absurd.
Right.
But her sister is like, you just gotta have faith it out. And this is where it less seems like she's trying to come on to her man. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, it's still an element there.
I'm with you.
And then we see Paul go through a scene where he's dealing with his own stuff on his own, and I'm so uninvested in this guy's personal life.
Correct.
Even though I know, it's the point of this movie, I just can't bring myself to care.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
So let's move on to interview number 3. And this time Paul comes in, and he's all business. He wants to come to some conclusions today, and so he gets straight to the point. God claims to be here to help Paul, after he prayed for some help from God. But how does being told he's gonna die help him?
Good question.
It's a great question. What's the answer? Do you remember it?
Nothing.
Well, to be fair,
I genuinely don't remember.
He got him back in the room for more interviewing.
Is that what he says?
Yeah. It got you here, didn't it?
He was gonna be there anyway, you bastard!
But that's literally what he says.
Okay.
He got you here.
I hate God.
And this prompts Paul to
I hate this God.
Right. Then God tells Paul that he can cross off the first question he actually had, which was, is God just a giant clockmaker? Because yes, clearly.
Yeah.
And so Paul points out, is this what happens when God answers your prayers? And God claims that he never said he was there to answer his prayers. You can check the record. He's only there because Paul prayed, which is a distinction, without much of a difference.
I'm shaking my head.
Yeah, but this is where I wrote down, like you sort of just said, God's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
This God in this movie, at least.
You're an asshole. A lot of the ones in other movies that we watch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My favorite God is Alanis Morissette.
My favorite God is Left Behind God, the Nicolas Cage version, because he was the bad guy.
Oh, that's right.
But Alanis Morissette is the actual best.
Yeah, because if I believed in God, that's the kind of God I would believe in. Just a loving, sweet songstress.
But apparently, God just arrived in this movie to deliver some bad news and then scoot. Mm-hmm. But Paul wants to talk about salvation, even though it isn't on his list of questions. We know that because God says it's not on your list of questions.
Right.
So God thinks that they've covered salvation pretty well, and he doesn't really want to, but Paul's insistent because he's the interviewer here and he'll interview how he wants.
Yeah.
God's evasiveness is really beginning to frustrate our main character, who is annoyed because...
And our main audience members.
That's true. Because all people want is a little bit of clarity, but instead they feel judged and ignored by some cosmic clockmaker.
It almost feels like God's just fucking with us.
Right.
Just like he's doing to this poor interviewer.
Right. And I editorialized a little bit there, but not that much. The intent is all there. I'm just making it a little smoother.
Right.
So we're going to go through the history of salvation through the Bible, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. But basically God admits that it was a little oblique in the Old Testament. Because, you have this, path that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're supposed to sacrifice animals. What does
he's still working it out.
Yeah, he's still getting it through.
He's perfect, but not perfect.
And then does he say that?
No, but that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
God's supposed to be infallible, and yet he's like, I fucked up a little bit in the olden times.
And then he presents us with Moses, who gives us the commandments, which is still a winding path, but is at least less winding than it was before Moses.
Right.
And then we get the even more clear stuff of Jesus. And God mentions how Jesus only mentioned 6 of the commandments, rather than all 10 when someone asked him how to enter heaven. And the stuff he left out was just the 4 commandments that deal with man's relationship with God. And he asks Paul, or us, what's more likely? That Jesus forgot 4 of the commandments? Or that he just didn't think that it was necessary to mention that you should keep the Sabbath holy, and that there was only one true God, because everyone already knows that. That's what he says. Like, how many polytheists do you know?
Right.
Except the thing is, the third largest religion in the world is polytheistic.
Yeah, but he doesn't know any brown people.
Clearly. Like, it's not even for how clever this movie thinks it's being. It's stupid.
Yeah.
The third biggest religion in the world, the third biggest country? Like, the second biggest country? Third. I think it's third. China, Canada,
Russia?
India. Oh, Russia. Fifth biggest.
We'll hit or miss this later.
Yeah. But the point is, one of the biggest countries in the world, with one of the biggest populations in the world, if not the biggest.
Right.
And the third biggest religion. It's like, how many polytheists do you know? Only 2 billion.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, yeah. Personally, not a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm aware of their existence.
Like, yeah, there's a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
It's a huge population.
That's an embarrassing thing to leave in this movie.
Okay, but that's fine. God then points out that life isn't simply an audition for the afterlife. And if humans can stop worrying about that, they might have time for other things, like loving others and living their lives. And of course, Paul is resentful over how long he exactly has for that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But God points out that he's given him a great gift. He just needs to accept it before it's too late. And Paul points out, as anyone should who thinks about this for even a second, that it's not a gift, it's a threat.
Yeah. I like this movie because at least this character is saying a lot of what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that.
But God says, I can't do two things at once? And that's not a good...
You just answered a question with a question.
And it's not even a good answer.
No.
Because he's saying, like, I can be your super best friend ever and give you this great gift, but also I can threaten you with death and torture. So really, what's so bad about that? The answer is the threat and the torture and the badness.
Right.
Like, I do not think my best friends are the people who, like... Well, yeah, I'm here to support you and help you out, right. But also, like, we have to hang out or I will kill your entire family.
Yeah, exactly.
They make movies about that, and the person on the other end of that is insane.
Yeah.
Swim fan? That's a movie about a crazy person.
Misery.
Yeah, Misery. That's a movie about a crazy person, not a best friend.
No. Sure, she nurses him back to health, but yeah, at what cost?
Those are the bad guys of those movies.
Exactly.
So if this is how if God is going to claim that for himself, he's literally admitting to being the villain of your life story.
Right. I will be your best friend ever if you do literally everything I say, exactly how I want you to do it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I will murder.
Then you can hang out with me forever. But if you don't, you hang out with the bad guys forever.
Sounds like the same deal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so God does also admit that he might have been possibly too vengeful in the past. See Noah. And I said, it's the name of the podcast.
I hated to put it together. We got a name drop.
But God points out that there's never a real threat without real consequence. So now he's definitely threatening Paul.
Yes.
And that's what Paul says. He's like, you're just straight up threatening me.
Super duper.
And they eventually conclude that this is all some sort of elaborate con, and that this guy really isn't God after all. But even if not, he did Paul a huge favor by giving him something to think about that wasn't his own life.
Question.
Yes.
Do you think that this movie follows the same rules as Dogma, in that if God dies in human form, he dies? Period.
I don't...
So murder-suicide... Paul shoots God. Then himself. There is no afterlife. God's gone.
Yeah.
Everything implodes.
Maybe. I don't know. They didn't
such a great twist.
I'm not positive it's possible to kill God in human form in this movie. Because what we're going to find out soon might help. So.
God was in a coma in Dogma, but he could have been killed.
But he was in a real body.
He was
So let's keep going, and we'll come right back to this point.
Cool. I wonder what I forgot.
So, Paul is really pissed off that he's convinced that he's being conned now by some guy who just like considers that he did Paul a favor by making him think about things that weren't his own life. But he gets a text. So he grabs his phone and he's just like, "Fuck you, dude. I'm gonna go. This is crazy." And God seems surprised that he's leaving. But Paul is receiving a message from his military buddy, who, he got the help for the PTSD guy help. And he asked him to look at this photo of this guy and see if it comes up in any databases.
Right.
And apparently,
I forgot about that.
the body that God is in is of a guy who died 12 years ago in Afghanistan. Dun, dun, dun.
M. Night Shyamalan again!
M. Night Shyamalan! But this is why I was going to come back to it.
Right.
In Dogma, Alanis Morissette, God gets a human body of like a coma patient or something. Or it gets a human body, I don't know, borrows it? Makes one? I'm not sure what the deal was.
I don't remember. I don't remember how she gets that body. I'm not even positive. I've seen that movie so many times. I don't remember.
She borrowed one.
Oh, wait, no. Nope, I was wrong. Okay, so the deal was, the only reason, like, God couldn't be killed in human form.
Right.
But she was kept trapped on Earth because her human form was in a coma because he got beat up.
If it died, she would just come back.
Exactly, which is what they did. They took him off life support.
Right.
And then the body died and she was able to be released. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I misinterpreted one of my favorite movies.
Right. She wasn't in her powers because she was in a coma. She was stuck in the body.
Right.
Right. So, presumably this body couldn't be killed.
Right.
Maybe comed.
I think that would be a benefit for everybody. Anyway.
Yeah, considering that he's just admitted to just manipulating everybody.
Right.
But when Paul finds out that the guy is supposed to have been dead 12 years ago, this motivates him to go back. And there's this stupid little scene where, like, the door's locked, but it's not locked. Whatever. He rushes in and he demands to know who God is. And God insists that he knows who he is. So Paul suggests that he's the Prince of Lies. But God says, I haven't told one lie in the last 3 days.
The Prince of Lies is so dramatic.
So how does that make any sense? And Paul says that God contacted him. He's the one that asked for the interview. And God asks him, how did I contact you? And he's like, for real, how did I do it? Was it a email, a letter, a Snapchat, a text? And so Paul realizes, like, yeah, he didn't talk to him by any conventional method. So how did I end up with this interview? And he's still confused by God's apparent offer to help him. And God says that he kept Paul safe. And Paul, of course, asks, how? How did you keep me safe? All you did was tell me that I was going to die.
Yeah.
And God points out that Paul already knew he was going to die, and you knew when, because you were going to kill yourself, and you knew that.
So many twists and turns.
And of course, Paul has this, emotional breakdown. And he's like, oh, God. And he's like, by pointing it out, God essentially kept him from doing it. And there was a scene earlier in the movie where he was, like, on a rooftop, and it seemed like he was thinking about it.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
But it also didn't really seem like he was thinking about it. This entire movie is based on...
It's fun to stand on rooftops. Yeah. I love standing on rooftops.
Like, he was literally just hanging out and he was kind of watching, and, like, it was filmed ominously.
Right.
But Paul didn't seem ominous. He was just on a rooftop. Because he was trying to call his wife. That's where the best signal is.
Yeah.
But Paul now breaks down because, he accepts him as God, I guess, because he knew that he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And so he just asks why God let him come this far. I begged for help. I wanted your help. And you just didn't do anything about it. Here I am at the end of my rope. I'm about to kill myself. You know this. I know this.
Yeah. And you're toying with me. Like a fucking cat and mouse.
And God asks him if he thinks that bad things happen because he doesn't care. Bad things happen every minute of every day. He doesn't actually answer the question about why he doesn't help humans.
Right.
But he turns it around on Paul and claims that people could cure all the woes of humanity. Diseases can be cured. Starvation can be fixed. Food can be grown. All this stuff can be fixed if we just take care of each other. And honestly, it's such a fucking cop-out that I am done with this movie.
Done.
The bad news is, I make sacrifices for our audience. And there's 12 minutes of this movie left. So I do have to watch a little bit more.
We both do.
But I do not have to write it down.
Oh, good. Did you not?
I have 3 sentences.
Remember.
God disappears in a flash, but I honestly, it pissed me off.
Yeah.
Like, everything could be fixed if people just, man, fuck you. Fuck this movie. You are literally omnipotent. It would cost a hypothetical God nothing.
Right.
To just fix things. But instead we're gonna go with, you guys can fix it yourself. Man, fuck you.
You built us and we're weak.
Right.
You made us
like, honestly,
horrible.
If it's this guy in eternity or the bad guys in eternity, I might choose hell over this guy. Because this guy's an asshole.
If this was the real God, I understand why the devil went against him.
Yeah. Because he absolutely needs an enemy.
Exactly. Or it's just like, he's like, you're awful.
Yeah, like, you literally could just fix the world.
Yeah. You made them like this, and then they're punishing them for it. Whatever.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Christopher Hitchens used to say, he wasn't, the super brilliant mastermind that some people claim him to be, but he had one good line. He had some good lines, but the one that I remember the most is the premise of Christianity is we are made sick and demanded to be well.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
That feels right.
You were created sick.
Yeah.
And commanded, not demanded, commanded to be well. But you can't do that.
Right.
Because you're sick. You were made that way. And so, your only alternative is this, God who made you this horrible way and demands that you do things his way. So that, it's that's bullshit. Why would I even if it was true?
That is so concise. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah, but it's even if it's true, why would I possibly worship this thing?
Right.
He's horrible.
Horrible.
And that's one of Hitchens' best lines. It's that's, like you said, it's concise, it's perfect, it works.
Yes.
But let's talk about the movie.
Okay.
God disappears in a flash of light, leaving Paul to figure his own shit out. And because I'm still pissed off about the cop-out that this movie is, I'm just going to tell you the brief notes.
Okay.
Paul's personal life sorts it out. Apparently he's not going to fuck his sister-in-law. Loser. And his friend is going to be okay. And his wife is going to get back with him. His bike was stolen, though. Whoops.
His bike was stolen.
Yeah, his bike was stolen. He forgot to lock it up when he got to his new place. So his bike's gone.
Right.
But everything else works out. That's it.
Cool.
Done with it.
Movie's over.
He should have fucked his sister-in-law.
I'm so grateful it's over.
What's the best and what's the worst?
Best is the questions, worst is the answers.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with a slightly different best.
Okay.
I think the acting in this movie is really good.
I actually think so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both main characters. The side characters are good, too. But, the acting is...
I mean, the guy who plays God he's around.
Right. He's an actor.
Professional.
He's an actor.
Right. I think the kid is in things, too. I don't know. I don't know. He also kind of reminded me a little bit of Charlie Cox, but... Mm-hmm. There was a little Charlie Coxiness about him.
But genuinely...
Yeah.
This is a well-acted movie.
It is.
When Paul gets all, pissed off and, upset...
And it's, despite the answers being cop-outs and being non-existent and riddles, it's a well-written movie, too. The storyline itself.
Yeah, it works.
It works.
It's just that the actual God stuff doesn't work.
If the point of the movie was to, bring people to God or make people feel, more connected, then
people who believe
it fails, in my opinion.
100% agree.
But, that being said... I can get, this God is consistently horrible. That is a character
right.
that is well imagined as being just generally terrible.
Right. It does not flippy-floppy.
Exactly. there's no wishy-washy. He stays the same frustrating the whole time. And, the Paul's character is consistent and his development makes sense and his questions make sense. So, and the storyline actually did surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, there were some twists in there. The wife being the one who had the affair.
That was a big twist.
The fact that Paul didn't get with his sister-in-law.
He's with a ghost general. He's been talking to a ghost general this whole time.
Yeah. The worst for me, we did it. It's the cop-out. For me, it's not necessarily the cop-out.
Uh-huh.
It's the decision to write this movie without any without the integrity to choose an answer.
Right. Yeah.
Cause
or just why create a premise like this when you don't have the conclusion?
Right.
And if it's one thing to leave it kind of open, it's another to think that you gave a conclusion.
Right. Cause they do in a lot of this.
Yeah.
How did you come to the moral decision of compassion? I didn't. It's just a thing I feel that you made me feel cause you're the fucking creator of me. That sort of thing.
Right.
But it's done with this sort of smugness that's hard to wash off.
What if we made a movie called Interview with My Synapses?
Yeah.
And it's just you talking to your brain.
Hey, some people can do that.
Yeah.
I have found that talking to myself, not literally.
Sometimes literally.
Sometimes literally. But understanding what my own thought process is has helped me with a lot of my shit.
Yeah, that's what therapy's for.
It's like therapy.
That is therapy, yeah.
Some people do it through lucid dreaming.
Some people do it through meditation.
Yeah, you dream about yourself, and you can ask yourself questions and get actual answers from your subconscious.
I had a dream that I was in Disneyland yesterday, and I was mad when I woke up that I wasn't able to make it lucid, because I'd spent the entire dream waiting in line for a Dole Whip.
That's hilarious.
It is hilarious and frustrating.
Yeah. Okay, so let's think about things that are like this.
Okay.
What's like this that they should watch instead, or in addition to? Because this is, like you said, it's above average for what we do.
Right. I went down a rabbit hole of like, what story does this remind me of? Mm-hmm. And the conclusion was, I don't remember. But
Tuesdays with Morrie.
I'm like, Tuesdays with Morrie, my interview with Andre, all of these things came to my mind. I'm like, what? I'm like, or no, it's, Dinner with Andre. Dinner with Andre. Yeah, Tuesdays with Morrie. I'm like, Waiting for Godot popped into my head.
It's a 1X play that can be made a movie. Yeah.
Exactly. It's debatable that it's like they're waiting for God. Mm-hmm. Then I'm like, Waiting for Godot. Oh, Waiting for Guffman. That's one of my favorite movies. Watch Waiting for Guffman. It has nothing to do with this movie, but it is a delight.
There you go.
Have you ever seen it?
No.
Do you know anything about Christopher Guest movies?
No.
He did like A Mighty Wind and Best in Show. They do mockumentaries.
I've seen like one.
Oh, they're so great.
I don't remember.
Anyway, watch that, not this.
All right, so mine, I went a different line than Hillary did. Mm-hmm. I thought of tremendous wastes of potential masquerading as intellectual art.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went with The Fountain.
What else? Oh, god damn, The Fountain.
That movie is a piece of shit.
Piece of shit.
I'm so glad we agree on this. Some people don't.
Did I tell you I have an ex-boyfriend and that was his favorite movie?
That's why he's an ex.
Those are the people I dated, Josh. Those were the decisions I made.
Yeah, he's the worst.
And so was he.
Yeah. No, that's what I meant.
Oh, he was the worst, yes.
Darren Aronofsky has made good movies.
That
was not one of them.
Stand him.
Any of them?
None of them.
That's funny.
Didn't he do Black Swan?
Yeah, I like that movie.
I hated Black Swan, too. He's so up his own fucking ass.
He is up his ass, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. The Fountain, awful.
He's the one that's in Mother, too. Yeah. He hates women.
I haven't seen Mother.
I haven't seen Mother, but I've heard, I read about it. I actually kind of want to see it because I just need to round out, when you hate watch, about hate watching. We've talked about it on this podcast a lot.
I do.
I hate watch Aronofsky.
Okay.
Hold on, I feel like there's something else. Oh, Requiem for a Dream. Hated it.
Yeah, I like that movie.
I hated it.
He did, he was either Noah or the other.
He did The Wrestler, and I have been told by my friend who knows all the things that I, like, she knows what I would and would not like. She's like, I understand you hating all of those. You would like The Wrestler.
The Wrestler's not like a normal Aronofsky movie.
Right, that's what she told me. Yeah.
The Wrestler's good.
Yeah, I will have to see that. Anyway.
You know what else was good? Fighting with My Family.
Did you see it?
I did.
I was considering seeing it.
It was good.
I saw it when it came out, or I saw a trailer or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is up Josh's alley.
No, it's really good.
I might see that.
Just for, like, movie.
Yeah,
If anything, the wrestling's the worst part of it.
Oh, really?
Because it's done by people who aren't wrestlers.
Oh, no. But they have so many wrestlers to choose from.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the main person who plays Paige is not a wrestler.
Right.
Most of the people are just actors. And, like, they do a fine job. It's not like it's bad.
Right.
But they're not wrestlers, and they get some of the wrestling, like, wrong.
Yeah.
But only in a way that bothers you if you really know wrestling. The movie is good.
Yeah, I saw it actually had a pretty good review.
It's
reviews.
Like a 91.
Yeah, something like that.
It's crazy.
Huh. I'll see it.
So yeah, you should check it out.
Okay.
Also, it made me realize something. Mm-hmm. You know who should be a huge star and is not?
Who?
Lena Headey.
Yeah, man. She's big in Britain. She's bigger in Britain.
But is
it Headey or Headley?
I think it's Headey.
Okay. I never pronounce it right.
Every choice she makes is good.
Yeah.
Every movie
so she's
she makes
in this.
Is good. She's the mom.
She's good, and she's really versatile in that. Sometimes I don't know it's her most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I know her from Game of Thrones, and then I'll see her in something else. I'm like, she looks really familiar.
Mm-hmm. It's Lena
and
Headey.
I've said that about her in several different roles, and she really becomes roles.
But she's in Game of Thrones, obviously. She's in Fighting with My Family, great movie. Dread.
Oh, right. I love Dread. And that she doesn't look like herself at all.
Her choices are interesting.
Yeah.
If you are a person who appreciates film and TV and whatever, you should just figure out like what she's doing next and watch it.
Yeah. Trust her choices.
Trust her choices.
Yeah.
So I think she should be huge. Instead, she's sort of like B-list.
Yeah, well, she rarely plays main characters, and I think that's probably why.
That's good too.
But she's one of those people that maybe it's better for her not to be a huge star because like character actors get more work for longer.
Yeah, sure. I've also heard that she's like a bit of a hippie, like she's a bit of a weirdo.
I heard that too.
Yeah, she's just like a weird,
kind of the opposite of her character in Game of Thrones. Yeah, she's kind of like she's a partier, but she's also funny as hell. She's so funny.
Let's talk about what we're going to do next week.
Okay, Josh.
As we always do, I have a big surprise for you.
Oh.
I went on the internet for this one.
You went on the internet for me?
For you.
Oh my gosh.
You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. We're just going to play.
Bible Man, the board game.
I got a board game.
Did you tell me that this existed?
I did.
I thought I remembered that a little bit.
And you said we should play it. And I was like, you know what?
We should play it.
We should play it.
And we should record ourselves while we play
That's
it. That's
the idea.
I love it.
I told you it was going to be extremely easy.
Okay. That it'll be, oh my gosh.
You don't have to prepare.
It's the best.
You just have to show up and do
You're
it.
such a gift. What a gift you are to me.
So get ready for Bible Man the board game.
Amazing.
It's going to be the best.
Amazing.
Hopefully. We'll see.
Looking forward
I'm
to
going to
it.
learn how to do it so we're not learning on the microphone.
Awesome.
So it won't be stupid. Like 3 hours of us reading a rule book. How does this work? And remember, if you like the show, please give us some of those 5-star reviews on whatever podcast app or service you are using.
Woohoo.
And tell your friends about us any way that you can, because we need you to.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, your enemies, your acquaintances, people you know in the street, get a t-shirt, get a magnet.
It costs nothing.
It costs nothing to tell everyone.
True. Spend most of your day doing it, actually.
Links to everything are in the description of this episode, and you can also go to the website, which is linked in the description of this episode, to send us a comment or a question for our handy-dandy mailbag.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have anything you want to say to close out the show?
No.
We appreciate your fucking faces.
Love you.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.